Hey there everyone, it's Savvy Italian Vanessa coming to you on New Year's Day 2020, and I have decided to create a traditional Southern New Year's meal of black-eyed peas. So right here I have about 2 pounds of black-eyed peas that I soaked for several hours, rinsed them and drained them. I have an onion. I'm going to use a couple of cloves of garlic, some of the inner stalks of the celery, including leaves because they're most tender. I have a pork loin that I'll be cooking, but I'm going to take off a little piece on the end and saute that with the onions, garlic, and celery for some added flavor. The spices that I'll be using are my normal onion, garlic powder, salt and pepper, but I'm also going to add some smoked paprika, some chipotle, and thyme. I'm not using the traditional collard greens or kale as I didn't have any available, but I did have spinach on hand, so I'll add that in at the end just to wilt it. I'm going to use some chicken broth. You could also use beef broth or vegetable broth, whatever suits you. Right here is a 32-ounce carton. I might use a little bit more, but I will definitely post the accurate ingredients and amounts when I post the recipe. And then I'm going to finish it off with a little bit of lemon just for some added freshness at the end. So this is what we're going to start with, and now I'll get ready to add some olive oil to a pan and start sauteing the onions, garlic, and celery. Saucepan, this happens to be a heavy cast iron pan, and to that I'm going to add some olive oil. I'm going to start out probably with about 1.5 tablespoons. So we'll let that heat up for a minute, and then I will add in the celery and onion. I would say that's about a cup of onion, probably a little over a cup of onion and a cup of celery. But again, I will give the exact measurements later on. And then I also have about 6 cloves of minced garlic, and then I have my spices ready to go. So in this little bowl, I have a teaspoon of smoked paprika and chipotle, half a teaspoon of Himalayan salt, and about 1 tablespoon each of onion and garlic powder, and then I will add the thyme a little bit later. I like to season every time I add something, so I will probably add additional seasoning, but we're just going to start out with that. So for now, we're going to add in our celery and onions, and I like to use, I guess it's called the bench scraper or like a pastry scraper, so I usually use that to slide the vegetables into the pot. It works out a little bit better. So forgive me because I'm doing this with one hand right now. So let's get that in there. There we go. A few of them are overboard, but I'll manage to get them. So nothing like the sizzle of onions and celery or onions and garlic hitting the olive oil. That's music to my ears. Okay, so let's just stir this around a little bit. And I do have the heat on medium-high. So we're just going to keep it there for a minute. Good. Try to get the rest of this in here. I'll let that go for about a minute or so, and then I will add the seasoning. And then I'll probably let it cook for another 3 or 4 minutes, and then add the garlic because I don't want the garlic to burn. So there we go. Let's get this out of the way, and let me try to get the few that went overboard because it was some of the good celery leaves, and they have the best flavor, so we want to make sure we add those. So let's give it another good stir, and then we'll add our seasoning. And I just pretty much rough chopped everything. You know, I think this seems to be more of a rustic dish. And again, I know this is a traditional dish for the South for New Year's, but I'm putting my spin on it. I'm using the flavors that I happen to like and my husband likes. So I don't know if that's the traditional way. It's a traditional meal, but I don't know if the ingredients that I'm using are traditional. But that's the fun of cooking, because you get to use whatever you want in your kitchen and, you know, make it your own. So now I just added the spices, and again, that was a teaspoon of smoked paprika and chipotle powder, 1 tablespoon each of onion powder and garlic powder, and about 1/2 teaspoon of salt. So I'll mix that in, and again, we'll let this go for about 3 or 4 minutes, just till they wilt down, and then we will add in the garlic. So let's just keep this cooking, and we'll add the garlic in just another minute. Okay, everyone, I'm back. So I have sauteed the onions, and celery for about 3 or 4 minutes in olive oil and seasoning. I added the garlic and cooked that for about a minute or two, and I just added up a little bit of the cubed pork loin. I also added more seasoning, so I'm going to let that cook until the pork is no longer pink, and then I will add the black-eyed peas, a little more seasoning and broth, and we'll let it cook down. So this is where we are so far, and we're only about 15 or 16 minutes into it, so this is a pretty quick dish. So I've just added the black-eyed peas to the pot with the onion, garlic, celery, and pork. So I'm just going to stir that around to mix everything together to be sure that all of the black-eyed peas are covered in all of that delicious seasoning. And then I will add a little more seasoning because I did taste it before the black-eyed peas were added to the pot, and the seasoning did need to be adjusted. Again, the seasoning amounts, I like things spicy and well seasoned, but if they're, if you don't like things spicy, or if you don't like, to add as much seasoning as I do, that's totally up to you. It's whatever you and your family prefer, but I do like spicy and well seasoned food. And I think with beans, they tend to be rather bland, especially beans that are soaked. The canned beans, of course, you can rinse. They're a little bit salty, but I think they have a little more salt than dried beans that are soaked. So I believe that you need to add even a little more seasoning. So again, I'm going to add in the seasoning now. Mix that around a little bit, and then I'm going to add the chicken broth. I'm going to start out with 1 carton, 32 ounces of chicken broth. Again, you can add vegetable broth or beef broth, even turkey broth, whatever you have on hand or whatever you like. And again, you're going through this with me for the first time, so this is trial and error for me. It's the first time that I've ever prepared this dish, but I just thought I'd give it a try. It sounds good. It's all good ingredients and things that I like, and we'll serve that with a side of cornbread, which I'll make later. Okay, so this has been pretty well combined. You can see the celery and the onions in there and some of the seasoning. So now I'm just going to add in the chicken broth. There we go. And if I need more, I will. This isn't supposed to be soupy from what I've read and the pictures I've seen. It's really just supposed to be, cooked down a little bit and be more like a stew type texture. So there we go. Stir that around a little bit, and then I will cover it. It's on low right now because I didn't want the beans to burn before I added the liquid, but I'm going to put it back on medium. So I am going to cover this, put the heat on medium, and we'll let it go. I don't know how long it's going to take, but again, I will post the recipe, with the times and the measurements that I used. So right now I'm just going to put the lid on and we'll see what happens. Okay, hi guys. Our black-eyed peas have been cooking for about an hour and a half. I just added a tablespoon of fresh lemon juice and lemon zest, and I've added the spinach, which I'm going to stir and wait for that to wilt down. I didn't end up adding additional broth, just what the original recipe called for, which was a 32-ounce carton, because I did want this on the thicker side. I didn't want it soupy. Again, this is the first time I'm making it, so it's trial and error, and if we need improvements, I'll certainly take any advice, and we'll make improvements on the next time. But it smells really good. I've tasted it a little bit. It looks good. And I'm also going to make our family's recipe for polenta, which is savory. I made regular cornbread because that's what my husband likes, but I'm going to make polenta, and I'll do that on another video, and we'll serve this over the polenta later. Hope you guys are having a good day. Talk to you later. Bye. And here we have it, our completed black-eyed peas with spinach, pork tenderloin. Started out with onions, garlic, and celery. Boxed cornbread for Mr. Savvy Italian, and our traditional Italian polenta made with olive oil, cornmeal, grated cheese, and seasoning. So we're going to sit down and enjoy. I hope you guys are having a great day and a great New Year's. And I wish you all the best for 2020. Take care.